You're listening to The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath on WCPT 820.
Okay, welcome back. And as a reminder, I am talking to you today from Madison, Wisconsin, sort of ground zero in the organizing efforts to move the country forward. I'm joined now by Dean Baker. Dean, as you know, a quarter of a century ago now, when he was just a very young man, Dean founded the Center for Economic and Policy Research, and he hasn't looked back. He's been promoting democratic debate on economic and social issues from the perspective of how they impact people's lives. He's written many books, he's written studies, and he has been sort of our guide to these kinds of issues on this show. Hey, Dean, welcome back.
Thanks, Edwin. Thanks for having me on. How you doing?
It is 25 years, right?
Yeah, it is. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this fall. So, yes, it is 25 years now.
Yeah, wow. So,
we're all getting old.
Well, but it makes a lot of us, including two candidates for president.
Yeah.
I've had, a lot of chatter for the last hour on the show about Joe's performance and what it showed and what he has to do. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. I do want to say, or ask you particularly, Trump spent a lot of time talking about the economy. And he said it was much better off when he was president, and that, that Biden inherited a great economy from him and has ruined it. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on the veracity of that.
Yeah, well, I'll just say I was certainly disappointed that President Biden didn't make the case better. But no, he did not inherit a great economy. The economy, we were in a free fall with the pandemic, which, again, you could decide how much you want to attribute to Trump. He didn't do a good job dealing with the pandemic, but that was worldwide. So the fact we got hit by it, you can't blame on Trump in that sense. But the economy was very, very far from doing great. In fact, we were creating jobs. And again, this is a really important point that I wish more people recognized. We were creating jobs at a very slow rate at the end of the Trump administration. So people are saying, oh, the economy just bounced back from the pandemic. Well, you could say that, but it was not bouncing back under Trump. The last 3 months of the Trump administration, we were creating 140,000 jobs a month, which ordinary times might be okay. But when you're down 10 million jobs, it would take you 5.5 years to get back the jobs we had lost in the pandemic at the rate the economy was growing under Trump. Instead, we got there in about 1.5 years. So the economy was not great. We had massive problems. Again, mostly you could say blame on the pandemic, fair enough. But Trump didn't have a way to deal with it. He was too busy trying to figure out how to stay in office after he lost the election. So, Biden has a lot to boast about that way. It was really extraordinary. And you can look at the projections. I mean, again, you have independent projections. I look at the Congressional Budget Office, but people could look at any other projections that were made at the time Biden took office. We did way better than any of them.
Yeah, and better than other countries, too.
Way better than it. You look at France, Germany, Japan, Italy, whoever you think you want to compare the U.S. to, our growth vastly outpaced all of them. There's Italy, I think, is in second place. Our cumulative growth was, I think, about 10 percentage points over the 4 years. They're at like 4. So it's we vastly outpaced their growth. And in fact, I mean, it's just an incredible story. If you look at the projections from the Congressional Budget Office, I mentioned them just because they're independent and they don't have an axe to grind here. They're well respected. It's not my call. You talk to anyone who's familiar. They're independent. They do the best they can, which doesn't mean they're always right. But they're trying to be straight. We actually have GDP, jobs were above where they had projected before the pandemic. So that's really extraordinary. And wages are actually higher. Real wages, adjusting for prices, adjusting for inflation, they're actually higher today than what had been projected before the pandemic. So we got this massive hit. It's like someone took a baseball bat to your head. And then, a month later, you're walking around and go, oh, all's good. I'm actually better than, I mean, I'm not recommending people get a baseball bat to the head, but the point was we recovered from a really, really bad hit in a way that was not projected by anyone, and certainly no other country came close to it.
Yeah, and remind me, because Trump says, well, before the pandemic, I oversaw a great economy. But remind me, like Joe Biden, did he, when he first came to office, have an economy in shambles and have to rebuild it? Or when he came there, was things already, moving in a really pretty good direction?
Yeah, no, if you look at the data, which I have and many other people have as well, you can't find, the Trump boom. The economy was growing at a healthy pace the last 2 years, 3 years under President Obama. Wages were actually rising. Unemployment was falling gradually. It continued to fall under Trump, so you could say it didn't get worse. I'll grant them that, But basically, we continued the growth trends we saw under President Obama. And if I just gave you the data, I go, here it is, quarter by quarter, you look month by month. Tell me when Trump took office. Don't give you the date. Just look at the graph. Tell me where you couldn't find it. There's nothing there. So it just there literally is no story.
That's really interesting, and yet because of his tax cuts, we ballooned the deficit bigger than any other jump I think ever. I may be wrong. Maybe the Iraq War was another one. But we had this enormous tax giveaway, and it didn't give a bump to the economy.
You won't find it. Again, if you look closely enough, and again, you have to say, well, was that due to the tax cut or was it just random? It was the big thing that was supposed to spur investment. There's no notable uptick in investment. Investment is always a little erratic. So if you look one quarter to the next, you'll see it going up or going down for, God knows what. It's just random. It's kind of like the weather. There's longer term trends, but, if I'm looking one quarter to the next, there'll be random movements. That's all you saw under Trump. There was no investment boom. You just can't find it, So this is all, it's 100% fake story. There's nothing there. And yeah, we did have a big deficit. I'm not a deficit hawk, as you probably know, but if you're going to run a deficit, let's do it for a reason. Let's do it because we're improving education, healthcare, building infrastructure, whatever, something, we're getting something for it. What do we get for that? Well, we got more rich people, or we made the rich people richer. It's probably a better way to put it.
Yeah. Hey, so Dean, this is really interesting because we have had an investment boom in the Biden administration, and it wasn't because of tax giveaways. It was because of old-fashioned industrial policy, I think. Am I wrong about that?
No, and it's very, very clear in the data. In contrast to, looking at trying to piece over the data within Trump years, you could see it. We had this incredible boom in factory construction, really unprecedented, where our level of factory construction in the most recent quarter, it's like double. And that's in real terms. I'm adjusting for inflation. I don't play games. You adjust for inflation. So we know the customer build a factory in 2024 and then it did in 2019. But adjusted for that, we're building about twice as many today as we did when Trump was before the pandemic. Again, not playing games. And yes, it very much fits with the industrial policy that we had. On one hand, the infrastructure programs, then the CHIPS Act. Again, trying to get the U.S. at the forefront of building cutting edge chips and semiconductors. And then, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act. And let's build electric cars here, solar panels, batteries. And we're seeing that. I mean, that was what those acts were intended to do, and they're having exactly the effect. And it's rare for me, just as a policy wonk. You go, okay, here's a policy that actually worked. They've done what they were supposed to do, and there's a lot to boast about there.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons, not just because I'm nostalgic, that I might have mentioned that you've been at this for 25 years, is for 25 years you have been telling us, hey, the way America's looking at growth and investments isn't really backed up by the data. This business of cutting taxes on the rich isn't the way to make the country prosperous. And you haven't had counterexamples because that's all we did. But now it looks like what's happened in the Biden administration has proven you correct all these years.
It sure looks that way. I mean, the whole idea that, obviously the Biden administration is pursuing this, and many of us had argued for things like this, is the government has to set up a framework. I mean, it sounds like the first time we've ever done this. I mean, you go back after World War II, we did this, whether you could say it was done entirely deliberately or not. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but we built the highways. Again, mixed story, because we had suburban sprawl, this and that. But that laid the basis of growth for 3 decades following World War II. Also, why do we have a cutting-edge aerospace industry? Well, because we gave gave huge subsidies. Part of that was the military. Again, we could argue whether military spending is always a good thing, but that did lay the basis for having world-class aerospace industry. We do it, again, doesn't get the notice. I think I've talked about this on your show before, but with the pharmaceutical industry, massive subsidies. We spend over $50 billion a year in biomedical research, and then we have very strong patent and related protection. So there's high drug prices. Again, I'm not happy about the high drug prices, but that does give an incentive to the industry. So yeah. We have a track record of doing this. It's just that we don't talk about it.
Well, now we are, and now we're doing it, and it's facing a huge backlash on the right, but it's making us all more prosperous, and I think we should be proud to talk about it.
Yeah, and the thing with electric vehicles, it came up again just in passing in the debate. I don't have to tell you, it was not a good performance, and we didn't get much enlightenment there. I'll just say that. But the story on electric vehicles really is remarkable because there's been so much improvement, not just the U.S. Obviously, China's probably ahead of us, and that's something we should take seriously because we want to be at the cutting edge. We want to be competing with them. But they set a great example. Here's what you could do. And you now have electric cars that cost roughly the same as traditional internal combustion cars, and they have far lower operating costs. You pay less for the electricity than you would for gas, and they have fewer moving parts, so you're going to spend less money having repairs done. So this is really a remarkable story. So I got a big kick out of this because Ralph Duthart, the columnist for the Times, had a piece a couple months ago saying Americans just don't like electric cars. You're just going to have to get used to it. And then in the very same piece, he was approvingly citing Trump, saying, we're going to have massive tariffs to keep Chinese cars out, otherwise there'll be a bloodbath, I think was Trump's term. But, if people don't want to buy electric cars, why do you need a massive tariff to keep them out?
Right. People do want them. They want them, and they're getting better, and Americans are buying them now in larger and larger percentages. Hey, there was something else I heard in that debate. Trump said, immigrants are taking all the jobs from black Americans. Okay, now just first, only an absolute bigot like Donald Trump would sort of characterize black jobs as, and he, in Trump's view, it's low-skilled immigrants coming and taking these jobs. So I guess Trump has never met a black scientist. He's never met a black professor. He's never met a black, economist. It was appalling. It was just appalling. But are immigrants stealing Americans' jobs, causing a bloodbath?
No, at the most simple level, just look at the unemployment rates. We have near record low unemployment. We had the lowest stretch of below 4% unemployment since the early 50s. Really remarkable stretch. And that's true for blacks. We had record low black unemployment. We're a little higher today, and it's unfortunate, but it's still very low. It was lower than almost any point in the Trump administration. So he doesn't have much to boast about there. But the idea that they're losing jobs to immigrants, that's just not same thing with the Hispanic. We had record low Hispanic unemployment. Again, we're a little bit higher, but not much. We're still close to the bottom. We're always bouncing around a little month to month, but so we have very low unemployment rates for these groups. Now, I'm not going to say there's never an issue of some competition. I'm sure, of course, there is. But on aggregate, blacks have more jobs today. They have an easier time getting jobs than almost any other time in our U.S. history, and same for Hispanics. So it's just kind of a nutty story. Overwhelmingly, the immigrants come here. First off, I wish he can get his story straight. Are they running around raping and murdering people, or are they running around taking our jobs? Or are they just so industrious that they do both? I don't, let's get the story straight at least. But obviously, they're coming
even in the same
here,
sentence.
It's just like what's going through his head, if anything. But they come here to work, and overwhelmingly they're taking jobs that most people here don't want. They don't want to work in the farm labor. They don't want to do construction, less skilled construction work. These are jobs that would go wanting and people are saying that. It's not like I'm making this up. You can go back, read 2 years ago, 3 years ago. All these business owners are saying we can't get anyone to work for us. Well, now they're getting more people to work for them because you have immigrants that are coming here. And they're coming here looking for work. That's the reality. That's what my great grandparents did. I got a big kick out of it. I forget what was the thing, and many of them are military age. Yeah, my great grandparents were all military age. When what on earth do they think they're saying?
right. Young people are migrants. I mean, when you're my age, you just don't get up and move as easily. Yeah.
Yeah. People in their teens, 20s, that's who does it.
Now, in part because in fact, immigrants aren't taking everybody's jobs and the labor market is tight. You have states like Iowa saying, yeah, you know what? We really think children should work overnight shifts in meatpacking plants. And you know what? What's going on with that? What is who's pushing to abandon our commitment to kids and getting rid of child labor laws?
Well, this is almost exclusively a Republican story. And what's just incredible is I forget, we were having some discussions about 30 years ago. I can't even remember who the specific group we were meeting with. And we're talking about restricting imports of things that were produced with child labor. Okay, what age, how extensive. And we just sort of took it for granted. Yeah, we outlawed child labor because we did that the turn of the last century, 1900, thereabout. And now we're saying they keep lowering the ages. I don't even know where you are in Iowa, but I mean, it's they have kids. One thing is to have a kid working at a convenience store, and there you could argue, okay, can a 17-year-old, is that okay? And again, one could argue that, but they're having them work the midnight shift in poultry plants. And needless to say, a lot of these kids are getting hurt. Some have been killed. We don't have to do that. We shouldn't be doing that. And it's kind of incredible that we're doing this stuff that's been outlawed for 100 years. And guess what? The economy did pretty well for most of those 100 years. So the idea that somehow we need to employ our kids in these dangerous situations is close to crazy.
Well, unless, Dean, you think it's just simply because they don't want anybody who looks different who would take those jobs to come to Iowa? I mean, is it just, in order to keep us white, we have to put our children at risk?
Well, that is a lot of when and it's not too much coded when they're saying, "Oh, you won't recognize America anymore." I don't know what else you could say. That's what they're talking about, and again, it's kind of crazy because we're, except for the Native Americans, at this point a relatively small share of the population. Obviously, we're all descended of immigrants, and that is America. And again, it's also not new in the sense that, these people aren't like us. You go back 120 years, that's exactly what they said about the people who were coming over, the Italians, the Eastern Europeans, Jews, my family. That's what they said about all of us. We weren't real Americans. I don't know. Maybe they still think that. I don't know. But
we have to rise above it again.
It's really pernicious. Yeah.
Hey, another sort of thing that came up or has come up in the campaigns is a claim that the Biden administration is making that Trump says, it's flat out destroying the country. Is the transition to green energy creating jobs?
Of course it is. And again, this is just like, how do you think we're producing these cars? How do you think we're producing batteries? How do you think we're producing solar panels and installing them? There's millions of jobs. So the idea that that's somehow killing jobs, and again, we have the numbers, so we could see massive rate of job creation. We've created over 15 million jobs since President Biden took office, and low unemployment rates. So it's just, what are you talking about? What jobs? Now, at some point, sure, we're building, if people are buying electric cars, they'll buy fewer internal combustion cars. And maybe some people, they only want to work in building internal combustion cars. I don't think so. If they do, that will be a problem. But that's not going to be many people. So there's plenty of jobs.
There are not many people employed in the horse and buggy business. It's okay to move forward.
And we don't have many people employed producing typewriters, to take something more recent. We use computers.
Right. Or telephone operators, who I think was the biggest category of jobs in the country at one time, wasn't it?
Yeah. We don't have many more. Elevator operators. I forget the Times are Post. Still, I think 16 people in the country employed operating elevators. Is that a tragedy?
No. So I had another economic topic that was a subject at the debate and is a very much important subject right now in the campaign. Trump says we'd be better off without an income tax and we'll just replace it with a 10% tariff on all of our foreign trade. That will, make America great again and restore our dominance in the world.
2 points.
Just leave the dominance part aside. What does that mean economically?
Okay, first off, let's call them taxes on imports. I've harangued people about that because a lot of people think tariffs are something China pays because that's what Trump tells them. These are taxes on imports, and there's always an economic issue. Well, what percent's by the supplier? Let's not get into that. What's a tariff? Comes in, we tax the consumer. You're going to pay a 10% tax on the clothes, the shoes, all the other things that we get that are imported, which better or worse, that's a lot of things in the economy. Okay,
wait, Dean, hang on. So what you're saying is, just so I understand it, what you're telling me is a tariff, the way we should understand it, it's just a sales tax on top of sales tax for things that are imported.
Exactly, and everyone should understand that. I'm just telling people, don't use the word tariff because it confuses people. I always try to think when I talk about economics, I'm trying to explain things. I want people to understand what I'm saying.
Sales tax surcharge on imported goods. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. So if we try to equate the revenue we get from the income tax with what we need on tariffs, we get $2.5 trillion a year from income taxes. That's roughly $8,000 for every person in the country. So if we're talking a family of four, that'd be $32,000. We're going to get that from taxing imports? I don't think it's even possible. You won't get that from taxing them at a 10% rate. You could maybe get it from taxing them at like a 150% rate because we import like $2 trillion. And obviously we'd import considerably less if we had a huge tax, a tax of 100% on them. Of course, we'd import a lot less. So you probably cannot even do it. But needless to say, we need huge taxes, and it's hugely regressive. The income tax, however much we might like to have rich people pay more, it is a very progressive tax. A lot of people don't pay any income tax, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, if you're earning $20,000 a year, you shouldn't pay any income tax. So a lot of people don't pay any income tax, but they would be paying.
We would put a big regressive tax on everybody in the country. That's on one side, and then I guess because it's a big tax on the things that people buy, isn't that enormously inflationary? Wouldn't that just make prices sort of like rise in a way they haven't even after COVID?
It'd be horrible. We'd see massive price jumps because we both see huge jump in the price for imports, 50, 60, 70%, depending what sort of tariff or tax we ended up with at the end of the day. And then also, obviously, domestically produced goods would go up in price as well, both because a lot of these are inputs. So if we're getting, let's say, steel, that we're putting this huge tax on the imports, then everything produced with that steel is going to go up in price, but also U.S. competitors will charge more, which is understandable. That's largely the point, that we're suddenly taking away all this import competition. Well, you're going to be able to charge more, and needless to say, they will. So it'd be massively inflationary, as we were talking about immigration a moment ago. So we're going to tell all these businesses they can't hire immigrant workers. Now they can't find workers. Well, prices are going to go up. So yes, this is like a recipe. If you were to ask me, how can you create inflation as quickly as possible? Well, Trump's probably got a pretty good plan for that.
So everybody who's listening, I mean, Dean has just walked us through a series of things related to, like, forget what you think about the characters of the two people running for president. The future that's on offer, depending on how you vote, right, is one that where we've changed a traditional way of doing things, at least the way we've done things for 40 years, in a manner that has led to massive investment and economic growth that's more widely shared than it's ever been. Or, oh my gosh, a plan to crash the economy, put people out of work, drive up inflation. It's a pretty clear choice economically between the two sides. Would you say that's fair, Dean?
I think it's very fair. And I'll be totally honest with you. If we'd gone back to January of 2021, just after President Biden took office, and I said, okay, you asked me, okay, what are things going to look like when we come around to June of 2024? I would not have given you as good a story as we had, just because I wouldn't think I could say it with a straight face. I don't like to look stupid. So would I have told you we're going to have 28 consecutive months of below 4% unemployment? Would I have told you we're going to have 15 million jobs? Would I have told you that we have this big boom in manufacturing construction? I probably wouldn't have said that thing. That it really has been extraordinary. And the idea that we're sitting here like, weak economy, that's not the reality.
Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty awesome what we've accomplished in a short time in this administration, and just I don't, for a long time, both parties bullied by, a set of economists, not you, but a set of economists, pretty much offered us the same economic platform. Very small differences. For the first time in a long time, there's a real fork in the road that we get to choose.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, it's been more successful. Obviously, I know a lot of people in the administration are behind this, and they're friends, and I'm glad to see them succeed. But the big thing is for the country. It really has worked out better than I would have thought possible. Again, things could always change. Maybe if we have this conversation 6 months ago, oh my God, that was stupid. But things look really good right now, and I'm going to celebrate it, and we'll see what happens in November. But this is really something that the Biden administration should be very proud to run on.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to be the last word, Dean. We'll talk again. I have no doubt soon, because it's going to be a wild few months. But as always, I really appreciate your scholarship and your candor.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
You bet. Take care. All right, everybody. Again, Dean Baker. You can find his stuff at the Center for Economic and Policy Research, and I urge you to do so. It's important for us all to be able to make these arguments. We're going to take a break, and then we are going to turn to a darker topic, which is, of course, the Christian nationalist world when we come back.